Eating out is a highlight of exploring any city. Across the world, Time Out has become the go-to eating guide for tourists and locals alike. Every month, the magazine's Beijing food editor serves up the latest on the capital's best dining. That's me, Shawns Silbert.
I mean, I just think, food is meant to be enjoyed. I don't think it's something that you need to be so psychoanalytical about. It's there. If it's good food, it's good food.
Dishing up the inside scoop on Beijing's culinary fare, this 25-year-old U.S. native knows more about the capital's colossal food industry than most locals.
I mean, food's always been a passion of mine. I never thought that I wanted to be a food editor when I was a little kid. I never thought that it was going to be this is what I'm going to be when I grow up. But the more I do it, the more passionate I become about it. And I'm always trying to work and become better at what I do and learn more about, food and writing and stuff like that.
Shawn minored in Chinese in college for 4 years. His first visit to Beijing was in 2008. 2 years later, he decided to stay here and later became the food editor for Time Out Beijing.
It's spicy, but it's got a little bit of a depth of flavor to it that allows you to sort of appreciate it without trying to gag on how hot it is.
China's food industry is something of a monster. Cities like Beijing are a labyrinth of restaurants, from high-end to hole-in-the-wall, serving up a massive variety of dishes. To test Silbert's expertise, we issue him a challenge. We ask him to create a food map that details Beijing's best and most affordable restaurants. Get set for a culinary discovery. First up, 大董. Peking duck is a very Beijing dish, and this is the place to get it. Their amazing qiezi is also one of the best in town. Lovers of spicy food need look no further than Dagui. This restaurant serves up a wide array of dishes from Guizhou. Fish and sour soup is one of their specialties. 点可点来 has no menu, serving up popular Yunnan food. Courses are created on the day, chefs improvising with whatever ingredients are available. Hidden in an alleyway, Chuanban is always packed. As the Sichuan government's office in Beijing, it is a place to get cheap and authentic Sichuan food. Specializing in the delicate dishes of Zhejiang and Jiangsu, Din Tai Fung offers up subtle food combinations, skillfully prepared. A retreat from the hustle and bustle of Beijing, Nanjing Impressions also pays homage to Jiangsu cuisine. Food alchemy is on the menu at Najia Xiaoguan, offering a multitude of tastes from China's cultural heartland of the Northeast. Dishes here are influenced by traditional Chinese medicine. Dumplings, if you haven't tried them, you haven't lived. Here, jiaozi are boiled and molded into jiao, meaning horns, hence their name. Filling up on this northern staple at Baoyuan Jiaozi Wu promises flavors and textures you won't find at most corner jiaozi shops. Qingtang food's staple fare is the Shanxi hamburger, pork cooked in aromatic broth and served in unleavened bread. Don't let this restaurant's name fool you. Lost Heaven serves up heavenly Yunnanese cuisine with a modern twist. Loving Chinese food is easy, but writing about it is a bit more difficult. Food in China is often created with medicinal or cultural traditions in mind. Shawn admits that, as a foreigner, he has limitations when it comes to judging Chinese restaurants.
Chinese food, like I said, it's a con unto itself, and because it's so diverse, there's always going to be things that I will not have such a personal experience with.
So how does a foreigner come to grips with all these depths and diversity?
In those situations when I go to a restaurant like that and I want to know if it's authentic or if I wanted something, I'll typically find a friend or someone that is from there or is very intimately familiar with that area or that cuisine. For example, 2 weeks ago I went to a Yunnan restaurant and I went with my coworker who's from Kunming, and I just sort of got her opinion because there were some things there that I was not familiar with, like certain types of noodle, certain types of things that they had that I had not tasted in Yunnan, but she had. So she was able to sort of give me her input and let me know if she thought that it was authentic.
Well, can a foreigner ever fully appreciate Chinese cuisine? Likewise, can a Chinese person ever fully appreciate Western food?
I don't think it's fair, really, to sort of categorize Chinese people as oh, well, Chinese people won't like that. Some people will like it, but some people won't. I mean, it's the same with Western restaurants too. I mean, there's a lot of like very local Chinese restaurants that I think it's like on its face, like Westerners seem like they won't like it, but if you took the food and gave it to them in their house, maybe they'd love it.
3 years after arriving in China, Silbert is still blown away by the speed of Beijing's development.
When Time Out first started, I don't really know, it's about 8 years or something. In the beginning of this year, we had our 100th issue party, so it's been about that long. When they were doing food reviews, they were covering like little dumpling restaurants and noodle houses just because there wasn't enough new Western opening. And now there's more openings than I can fit in a magazine.
So how does Silbert describe the city's food business?
Because it's so egalitarian and so personal, you can go up to the chef and you can just talk with them, and they might say, oh, well, next week we'll put this on the menu. I mean, it's almost like a startup company. I think, you know, people are pretty flexible, and they want to go out and try new things and open up their own restaurant and become entrepreneurs. I think that's really interesting.
The small alleys and courtyards of Beijing symbolize the city's long history. Restaurants opening in these areas are creating a fusion of Chinese cuisine, culture, and architecture.
One aspect of that is that people are very, very willing to reuse old and historically sort of significant spaces and use it in sort of restaurant settings. I mean, it's true in some ways, like Temple Restaurant Beijing, which is set in sort of a very old historical temple by Jingshan Park, but there's also in more pedestrian, more down-to-earth ways, like you go to like Nanguxiang, or you go to sort of that area. There's many old like hutong buildings that people have restored, either in the courtyard or just sections of it, and made restaurants. And that's sort of a way of preserving the old architecture and making it and giving it new life. And I like that because I feel like the hutong area is one way that makes Beijing unique, more so than architecture, but that way of life is something that is very special, and I feel.
Beijing has witnessed an explosion in the number of foreign restaurants since the 2008 Summer Olympic Games. They've come a long way from Moscow Restaurant, the city's first foreign restaurant, which opened in 1955. Back then, it was one of the only places locals can sample non-Chinese fare.
I mean, it's breakneck, and it's really, really sort of invigorating to look up and see, oh, this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and this is a new trend, and that's a new trend, and everyone's wanting to experiment and try new things. I mean, it's exciting, really.
Silbert said Beijing does have some drawbacks. He worries about pollution and food safety. However, he has a lot of love for the city, and not just because of its restaurants.
I really like the people here. I feel like people here are very friendly. They're very open. It's not difficult to strike up a conversation and sort of explore and go out on your own. I feel like it's a really good aspect about it.
So what's his advice for tourists taking their first bite out of Beijing?
I think that they should go for something really simple. They shouldn't go for like very regional, like Sichuan or something like that. Maybe some just, jiatang cai, something that regular people eat, something that would probably be best for someone that's trying to get into the city.
And for everyone else?
Well, food is meant to be enjoyed. If it tastes good and you enjoy it, that's really all there is.